And that's fine with me. I don't care.
Andy, we are halfway through 2018. It's July. The year is half over. And I've got to say, I haven't seen a bad movie yet this year. How about you?
Oh, jeez. I'll have to look at my Movie Pass app.
Oh, yeah? You're still using that. I thought that was
Oh,
going
yeah.
down the toilet. I thought they were taking rights away and stuff.
Well, I jumped in on. They gave an incentive for people that joined early
Yeah.
to pay for the whole year for $6.99 or $6.95 a month, and so I'm grandfathered claused in to not paying the whatever they call it, high demand fee or whatever that they just imposed. I do now have to take a picture of my ticket.
Okay.
Because I guess what they were running into is people were sharing accounts, kind of like people do with Netflix.
Sure.
And for something like this, that's just going to kill it.
Yeah.
So I don't have any problems with having to do that because I understand why they had to do it.
Well, what
that
was
peak pricing thing got me a little bit, and I understand why they had to take off seeing movies multiple times.
Yeah.
I mean, if people start abusing something like this, it makes it really hard for them to meet projections and whatnot. So I understand why they had to do some of the stuff like that. So if I want to see a movie a second time, I go out of pocket. It's no big deal.
So how exactly does it work? Do you have like a photo ID that proves that it's you? Because if they didn't take away the second viewing thing, you and I could just, if we lived in the same town, you could see it Friday, I could see it Saturday, we could give it to Brett if we wanted to, he could go see it Sunday. I mean, how do you prove that it's you?
Well, I guess it's up to the name on the card is under your name. So technically, I guess the person that takes the debit card is supposed to check, but
Yeah,
they
but
never
you're dealing with like a 15-year-old that's just trying to make
they
like
never
$8
do.
an hour. They don't give a shit, you know. They just want to sell you the ticket. They want to sell you a bag of Sour Patch Kids and a box of popcorn. They want you moved on as fast as they can so they can serve the next person.
Well, they took away not being able to see the movie a second time, and then I guess people were still putting in for one movie, going up, paying for the other movie, and getting in, to see it. Because it doesn't come across on the statement what movie you saw. It just says that you saw a movie. So I think that's why they added the taking the picture.
Okay, now hold on a sec now. You lost me there for a second. So what you're saying is, like, let's say I wanted to see Jurassic World twice. What you're saying is that I, like, used Movie Pass for Jurassic World the first time, and then the second time I said I was going to see Solo. But I went and saw Jurassic World.
Correct.
Okay.
So now you have to take a picture of your ticket as soon as you complete the transaction. A thing comes up in the app, and it has a little picture thing, and you take a picture of your ticket. And I guess they say if the ticket doesn't match the movie that you say that you checked in at, then they can call that a breach of terms of service and kick you off.
That serious they are with it.
Well, I think they're getting to the point where, it's shit or get off the pot. They're either going to have to start making some money, and the way they're making their money is they're selling your data. I mean, let's not make any bones about that.
Yeah.
And that's fine with me. I don't care. I mean, I figure if you've got an email address and any kind of social media account, anybody can find out anything they want about you if they've got the gumption.
Yeah, that damage has been done a decade ago. The moment we signed up for Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that shit, we were toast. Our data is gone.
Yeah, so I'm not, but what they're doing now is they're starting to post ads. You'll get an email every once in a while asking you if you want to buy something. They promote movies, so now movie companies can promote their movie through the app, and you'll get an email saying, hey, go check out this movie. But, I mean, I've enjoyed the service. I haven't had any problems with it. It's never crapped out on me. I've gotten my money back probably threefold. I've seen some stinkers, but when you're not paying for them, they don't sting as much.
Well, and that kind of makes me circle back around to my original point here with haven't seen a bad movie. You're in kind of a different situation because you can go see a turd of a movie. I think you saw Tag a couple weeks ago, didn't you?
I did not see Tag.
Okay, you were talking about seeing Tag.
Oh, I was just kidding.
Okay.
That one does not interest me at all. I mean, I kind of heard from some other people that it wasn't that bad, but the premise of it to me seems ridiculous, and I'm not gonna support that kind of. Now, the one movie that I did go see that I was pleasantly surprised with was Upgrade. It was kind of an indie film, and a buddy of mine that also has Movie Pass went and saw it, and he said, "Hey, if you got a free 2 hours, go check it out."
Yeah.
And it was pleasantly. I even liked Life of the Party. I went and saw that with Melissa McCarthy.
Well, and the deal is, too, you just mentioned indie movies, and in the world where we get these endless sequels, and you and I both enjoy the Marvel films, so I'm not bashing them in any way. I'm always going to pay to go see the latest Marvel film. But in a world where we get sequels and remakes and reboots and all this shit, those indie movies can be really refreshing. Like when I went and saw Hereditary a couple weeks ago, even though I did hate it leaving the theater, but it's just something different. It's something you haven't seen before, and that's really refreshing in this day and age.
Yeah, that's like when I did that thing last couple of months, before the Oscars, where I was going to see all the Oscar-nominated films. I don't think I've ever seen more than one film that was nominated for an Oscar in any given year. And this year I saw all but one. And that was something neat that I got to do with this Movie Pass that I normally wouldn't have done. I mean, it's a catch-22. Of course, I'm going to more movies. I'm going to movies that I normally wouldn't go to. So when you're trying to factor in the overall savings and this and that, and you're like, okay, I wouldn't have gone to that movie anyway. So I wouldn't have paid the $8 for that one. So you could take that off the ledger. When you're trying to reason it out like that, it gets convoluted. But I just like to be able to leave work at 4:20, go up, sit in an almost empty theater and watch a movie.
The afternoon movie is the best. I absolutely love it. Ever since I became a dad, that has been my go-to escape. To just have peace and quiet. It used to drive me nuts to go to movies by myself. Like when I was in college, I felt like everybody was looking at me like, there's that loser, he's got no friends, nobody would go to the movies with him. Man, I absolutely adore it now. It's the exact opposite. It's the only peace and quiet I get for 2 hours is to go to the movies by myself. And that afternoon matinee, it's cheap, the theater is empty. The only downside is there's always some jackass in the theater that thinks because it's the matinee show, he can talk, he can text, he can answer his phone, and that just, oh God, that pisses me off.
I mean, there's several movies that I've seen. I was the only one in the theater. Which is nice.
Yeah.
And I also like it. You get in your car and you drive home and you can reflect a little bit on what you just saw.
Yeah.
Instead of hearing everyone else's opinions, you can kind of digest it yourself and be like, man.
Well, and that's part of the reason that I was so sour on Hereditary when I left the theater. Well, first of all, we had technical problems. It's the only time I've ever been to a theater that I remember, the picture went blank, we had audio, then we lost audio, then the picture was frozen, we got to see a couple of scenes twice because they didn't time it out right, so that really killed the flow of the film. But then as I was leaving, there was two guys, and they were nice about it, and they were funny, they were cracking jokes, but they were just bashing the film, and by the time I got inside my truck, I was like, those guys are right, that movie was fucking terrible. So it definitely does rub off on you what your fellow moviegoers say when you're leaving the theater, whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah.
So,
but
it's
I went and saw Ant-Man. It was what was it? Was it the Friday? Yeah, I guess it was. I didn't go see it on the Thursday. I'm trying to stay away from those.
Yeah, you've had some bad experiences.
Yeah, so I went and saw it at the 420 viewing on Friday. And I got in there damn near close to preview time, and there was two other people in there, and I was like, uh-oh. And I think I've even tweeted out if this showing's any indication, we're not breaking any records with this film. But it ended up doing quite well.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw it on Sunday, so it had been out 3 days if you count Thursday. And my theater was packed. I was going to take my daughter, and we looked ahead at theaters. You know, you can pick your seat ahead of time. We couldn't find 2 seats together, so she had to stay home. But after you told me that, I was like, this movie is not going to do well. And let's face it, Ant-Man isn't exactly a marquee character.
When I said not doing well, I'm talking about a $100 million opening.
Yeah.
And I think it did that anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what the numbers are. I have what it's done. So far it's done $133 million domestically and then $150 worldwide. I don't know if that's up to date. That seems kind of low. That's only been a week though, but yeah, that sounds about right.
Week 2. Yeah, so it must have did over 100 in the opening week because it did 29 in its second week.
Yeah, and I read somewhere the drop off from week 1 to week 2.
Yeah, it was 60%.
It was really, really dramatic, which is kind of surprising. I'm gonna go see it again once I get.
You know what?
A little bit of free
that doesn't
time.
surprise me, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Once again, it's Ant-Man. It's not Avengers. It's not Batman. It's not.
He's not a marquee guy.
Yeah, it's Ant-Man. You'll be hard pressed to find many people that would even realize he was a superhero. Without the movie, because his comic books aren't real. I mean,
I had never heard of him before.
The
first movie.
You know what I mean. I don't want to piss off anyone in the comic book world because he is a fairly popular character.
He's really old too, isn't he? He's been around from the same. I think he was one of the first Avengers. No.
Yeah, and so most of the people that wanted to see it saw it opening week. So it would be only fitting, and I bet you they're ecstatic with $133 million after 2 weeks. I don't know what the thing cost, but I can't imagine that they're upset about it.
Now, we're talking a little bit about the second week performance. Is it a movie that you would want to go see in the theater a second time?
You know what? Probably not, because I didn't see the first one. You know what? Before we jumped on this podcast, I watched the first one for the second time.
Wow.
Since I saw it in the theater.
That's surprising. That's a pretty old movie. I think that was 2015.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, I heard a lot of people bantering back and forth whether they liked the second one better than the first one.
I did.
And I was like, man, I couldn't even remember the first one. So I saw it was on demand. I put it on after work, and I finished it right around 9 o'clock. So,
yeah, while you were telling that story, I called up the budget. It was $162 million. So this is a relatively cheap movie by Marvel standards.
Yeah, and it'll get that. It'll probably have another $20 million week, or maybe even 15, 16. It's got 2 more $15 millions in it.
Yeah.
And then that'll get it on budget, and then factor in whatever it makes worldwide, and then these things kill it on Blu-ray and DVD, and then it'll go into syndication. It's gonna recoup that money.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, everyone talks about like, oh, it's a dud, like the Solo movie. Oh, I'm looking at it right now. It's still in 315 theaters, and it's made $211 million.
Have you actually seen people compare this to the Solo performance? That's absurd.
I thought I saw someone saying, are we going to mention the record drop-off of Ant-Man and Wasp? Like we did with Solo. And
Star Wars fan?
I don't even remember. I saw it on Twitter as I was scrolling through my timeline. And, hey, they are what they are. I mean...
Well,
it's all relative.
You just said a minute ago, Andy, about how forgettable the first movie was. And I think that's because it was just such a basic plot. Like it didn't really have
a heist.
It was a heist, and it didn't have a particularly strong villain. That was before Marvel kind of found their groove, where they've been on a great run. We'll get into this eventually, but this movie had a particularly dull villain, I thought. But before they got into that run with like Ego and Vulture and Thanos, Marvel's been red hot with the villains. They've got that figured out now. But Marvel, it was Yellow Jacket was his name. I can't remember a single fucking thing about him. I mean, it's just a very forgettable film.
And I'll tell you what, he was really only in the movie for like the last half hour.
Yeah.
So
and when we say Ant-Man is a forgettable film, that doesn't mean we didn't like it. I think it's still a very good movie. It's just these don't. I see where they're connected to the MCU, but these feel like kind of almost spin-offs. They're not set in New York. Yeah,
they're standalones.
And geographically that makes sense because these are set in San Francisco. You're not in New York City where most of the central action in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been up to this point. So, and I'm fine with that. Not every single movie has to be an Avengers B plot.
I mean, there was a great line in the first Ant-Man that was almost a throwaway line, but it pretty much meant a lot, where Scott Lang goes, maybe we should call the Avengers. And Hank Pym goes, you know what? I tried to keep this technology away from a Stark for years. I'm not going to just hand it over to him now. So now you've got you see the tension, there's the tension. It's the opening scene of the movie, first of all, and then that line shows you that, okay, not all these superheroes are just like on, because I get myself thinking about that when I watch the Netflix shows. I'm like, why doesn't Luke Cage just like call, Daredevil or Jessica Jones, like whenever, like, or why aren't they coming to his aid whenever he's got a problem? And I think that this kind of helps show that maybe these superheroes don't always necessarily get along or like to meddle in each other's business. So it gives you that nice separation that you can keep in your head on, like, why isn't like just every superhero addressing every problem, whenever it arises?
Yeah, and that's such a subtle way, what you were just talking about, Andy, with this comment about Stark. It's such a subtle way of doing it, whereas like Star Wars, the last couple of movies, has been beating us over the head with that kind of exposition. Marvel handles it so perfectly. They just kind of weave it into the story. It doesn't stand out, but on a subconscious level, you're able to make that connection.
Like, I didn't even remember that.
Yeah.
That line. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh, man. Because, like, one of the main things that a lot of people had problems with the second one was, like, why isn't everyone around when at the end, in the after, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't you agree, though, that after the heaviness, the very somber tone that Infinity War ended on, that was 2.5 hours. It was a behemoth of a movie. There was a lot going on. It had almost every character in it at some point. This is exactly the kind of laid-back movie that we needed. And I didn't want any of those characters to show up. I kind of needed a moment. It's like being at a big family reunion. You don't want them coming back to your house afterwards. You've seen enough of them for now. Give me some space to just kind of hang out by myself.
Yeah, and the way that they did the whole story, the way they wrapped it up, they don't have to have another Ant-Man movie.
I hope they do, though.
This was a complete stand alone. Nothing in the after credit scenes, or addressing any future.
Well, the one was pretty significant. The second one was pointless.
It had nothing to do with the third Ant-Man movie, though.
No, but I mean, it had everything to do with Infinity War, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, after they ended the first Ant-Man movie, they introduced the Wasp, costume.
Yeah.
And you knew they were going to do another Ant-Man. This one here, okay, it does 160 domestically, and it costs 160 to make. Maybe they look at at the margins and say, you know what, maybe we don't do a third one of these.
Well, and we've talked about this before with Stevie.
And it's already wrapped up, so you don't have to worry about leaving any loose ends. So it was good.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before, I think, with Stevie, about how we're kind of at a crossroads with the classic MCU characters, the Thors, the Captain America, Iron Man, those kind of guys. the actors themselves are getting old. I mean, they can't play these characters much longer. I don't think I want to see them play these characters much longer. Iron Man is my favorite MCU character of all time. I don't want to see an Iron Man 4. I've had enough. I'm perfectly fine with those guys being pushed off the grid in this next Avengers movie. I don't think Ant-Man is going to be one of the guys to take their place, though. I just don't think he's got that weight. I think they're going to be moving forward with Scarlet Witch. Spider-Man clearly is going to be big. Black Panther is going to be big. Doctor Strange. I don't know what the future holds for Ant-Man. I don't know if they'll do a third movie. I would like to see it, though. I like that environment. I like seeing the characters that are specific to this story.
They're fun. They're fun movies.
It is. It's a relaxing movie. It's like taking a deep breath after Infinity War.
But I tend to think that maybe what they do is maybe do one kind of movie that ties everything up. And then they shoot off on one story and then kind of reboot stories from the other characters. You're not going to go 10 years without a Captain America movie.
Yeah. So when you say reboot, you're talking with a different character.
Yeah, bring in a different actor, start another story.
Well, and aren't some of the characters that exist in the MCU right now, haven't they been the Captain America in the comic book at some point?
Yeah.
Do you think they'd go something like that?
I think they'll do that for a little bit, but then I don't know. We'll have to see how successful those movies are. You might have another thing where they take a 5-year hiatus and then they do a whole nother, story arc in the MCU with when they get all the characters back. Because you got to think if they get the X-Men back and if everything ends up under one tent, then you might be able to do a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of different options. I know, and I'm sure we talked about this before, but going into Infinity War, I really thought this genre of films was about dead. I thought the fatigue was really setting in, but these last two Marvel movies... DC is still fucked. Sony, whatever, they're not doing anything. I'm not excited about the X-Men movies at all at this point. But I really feel like Marvel has got like their second wind. I feel like they've really got some traction. I'm way more into this world than I am at Star Wars right now. I mean, there's many, many reasons I could get into where I'm at with Star Wars at the moment. But man, I'm all in on these Marvel movies. They're so good. They just do everything so... There's not going to be a ton of surprises in these movies, but they're going to be consistently entertaining.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just going to be interesting what they do with Avengers 4 and how they transition after that.
Well, and we have to assume Scott Lang is going to turn up in that, right?
Well, yeah, I would assume.
And maybe that'll be his send off here too. What's the name of the guy who plays him?
That's Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd. He's not that young. I thought he looked a little more wrinkly in this one.
Yeah, he's probably in his 40s.
He probably doesn't have a ton of time left playing this character either. Oh man, that opening scene though, he made me feel like the world's most inferior dad. With that whole setup he had there.
Oh, yeah. He's 40. Christ, he's almost my age.
What a great way to open a movie, though. What a fun way to open a movie.
He's 49 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
Man, I feel younger now.
You could have done so much more with your life. You could have been in a Marvel movie if you just would have had a break here and an acting class there.
Exactly.
So this is only the third appearance by Ant-Man in a Marvel film. He was in both of his films, and then he turned up in Civil War, was it? Yeah, he was in the scene at the airport. And it's kind of telling that newer characters have gotten as much usage, if not more. I'm talking about Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man. They've all been in 3 movies already. Spidey's getting his 4th movie next year, I think. Isn't next Spider-Man movie next year?
Yeah, I think so. February?
Yeah, and even secondary characters like Scarlet Witch has been in more movies than him. Do you find that that's kind of telling what they think about the importance of this particular character, or do they just not have a place for him in these other movies as far as cameo appearances?
No, I think it speaks more on those other characters that they're not strong enough to be in a feature.
Oh.
That's my feeling on it, and I think that a few of them are getting there. I think the way that I would argue that one of the most important characters in Infinity War was Scarlet Witch. And,
No, nobody would argue against that.
And I think she's getting close to being able to do her own movie.
Yeah.
And I understand they're probably thinking about doing a Black Widow.
They've been talking about that for a while.
That one I think would be more of a prequel origin story, I bet.
I would be interested in either of those movies, the Black Widow or the Scarlet Witch movies, than I am for Captain Marvel, if we're being honest.
Because I think they needed the Captain Marvel to close into Avengers 4.
Yeah, clearly she's going to play a big role in the next one.
So, but I think either one of those, if they did either one of those movies, I think it would probably be an origin story, because if you think about it, they kind of threw Black Widow right into it, and you didn't really get to know a lot about what makes her tick and how she started out and everything. I mean, you got a little sense of it where they had her tied up, and Well,
she popped in all the way back in Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
I don't. When was the last time you watched that one?
You know what? I think it was on TNT or TBS one time, and I sat there and watched it.
Yeah, her appearance in there is very jarring.
That's a tough one.
It doesn't even feel like the same character to me. It's just very jarring. She's got the badass moves at the end, but it's almost like even the hairstyle and stuff. It's just it doesn't even feel like the same person.
Well, that was a rough movie.
It's a bad movie. It's arguably the worst of the. Well, I would still dispute that Thor: Dark World is the worst, but it's the second worst of all these films. It's terrible, and I love Iron Man.
But I mean, some would argue that this new Ant-Man movie was the first woman lead.
Oh yeah, she was a badass.
I mean,
and I love Evangeline Lilly, so I'm naturally a big fan.
I mean, it was Ant-Man and the Wasp, but the Wasp definitely carried the movie.
Yeah.
She drove the action. She took charge. He was almost just along for the ride. And I think that might have been by design, where Marvel said, "Hey, let's see if we could pull this off with the female lead," because a lot of times the guys just don't get it. But I think we're getting past that.
Yeah.
And I look forward to more female leads.
Yeah, I would watch an independent Wasp movie, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
I think Evangeline Lilly is perfectly cast in that role, and I love the rapport she has both with Michael Douglas and, I forgot his name again, Scott Lang.
Yeah, I mean, it's the family business.
Yeah.
The family business of the Pims is the Pym particle.
Well, and that's ultimately what these movies, the predecessor to, was the exact same way. These are much more about family than the bigger picture. Everything is small. It's on a smaller scale, and there's no pun intended because, they shrink. But it's just, and it's a refreshing change. Sometimes you need to not have the fate of the universe hanging in balance. We get kind of tired of that storyline. It's exhausting to watch. And after Thanos killed half the population of the entire galaxy, it was nice to just have, lesser consequences in this film.
Yeah, I mean, I just, it was fun. I'm not particularly fond of kids, but I love the rapport that he has with his daughter.
Yeah.
They seem to have a lot of good times together, and she's just cute as a button, and it warms this cold heart a little.
This is a particularly well cast film, and a lot of it's carryover from the first movie, but you've got, the interactions, everything feels so natural, the interaction between father and daughter, and that applies to both the Pyms and the Langs. Even the relationship that Scott has with his ex-wife and the new husband, it just all feels so natural, and it's interesting. The best friends, the heist from the first movie, It's just really well, and of course Hank Pym and Lawrence Fishburne. That was an interesting wrinkle that I didn't see coming. It was just all very well handled.
Yeah, it's nice to have a man and his ex-wife have a amicable relationship.
Yeah, they don't hate each other.
Yeah,
he hugs the new husband. He hugs his replacement.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that happens more times than not. But you see it in the movies. Everyone hates everyone, and but that was a little bit refreshing.
Yeah,
I thought.
Yeah, it would have.
And I know you didn't like the villain as much as I did. I liked the non-traditional villain where it wasn't so much someone looking to kill everyone as somebody that's just had a tough break and is looking to just save herself.
Well, and I certainly didn't mean to imply that I didn't like this villain. I just didn't feel like it was as complex of a villain as we've seen the last couple of movies. I thought it was still well done, and like you said, Andy, it was something different. She was very sympathetic. You felt sorry for her, because you could, and I think the actress, I'm not sure who played the character of Ghost, did a good job of conveying just how much physical and mental pain that character was in as she phased in and out of existence.
And that's a character that I could see them turning into a good guy.
Yeah. Well, she had worked for S.H.I.E.L.D., so at some point she was a quote-unquote good guy.
But, I mean, I could see maybe seeing her again in some aspect.
Yeah.
Because I thought, I don't know who the actress is. It's one of those hyphenated, names. I don't even know if I've seen her in anything else, but she did a good job.
Yeah, and I would definitely like to see that character turn up again at some point. Maybe not like a regular, but a recurring character,
Now, the thing that did disappoint me was Walton Goggins.
Oh, that was so stupid.
It just seemed like he got in the way. He was like just being swarmy for the sake of being swarmy.
Yeah, I did not like his performance, and I also felt like the character...
And he's usually so good in the things that he's in.
Yeah, I would have liked to see him write the movie in a way that side plot wasn't even going on. I know it made for the great chase at the end, and it kind of was like, us versus them kind of thing, kind of a triangle there at the end going on as everybody was racing for the shrunken building, the lab. But yeah, I did not like his character. Like you said, Andy, I thought the performance was bad, and it was just kind of it was more confusing to me what exactly his motivations were. I wish that would have been rewritten.
Yeah, it just felt weird. It felt almost like a carbon copy of Sam Rockwell's character in Iron Man 2. Just a guy that's out to make a buck. I don't know.
Yeah,
it was weird. It was weird. It was weird how he found out, like he stumbled upon finding out about the lab and everything, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. That was the one depressing thing about the movie, and it wasn't a big enough arc of the story to turn me off on the movie, but I think it was enough to lead me to believe that the first one was a little bit better.
Yeah, whenever he and his goons were on screen, and like I said, the chase at the end was great. I'm not knocking that at all. I wouldn't change that one bit. But I just didn't really understand. I wanted to be with the other characters, and that includes Ghost. I want to know what's going on with these characters. I'm sick of seeing these guys riding around in the Escalade.
Yeah, and I was... I mean, I guess we're kind of jumping around a little bit more than we usually do in these things.
Who cares?
I was completely expecting a Michelle Pfeiffer heel turn when she got out of the quantum realm there. I was expecting her to end up being a bad person.
She thought she was going to break bad, huh?
Yeah. So, and I'm kind of glad they didn't do that because that would have been the predictable way to go, and I'm glad they didn't.
I was a little confused about what exactly... I get she was trapped in the quantum realm for a while, but did she emerge with magical powers? Is that the deal?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that was, because apparently they didn't... when she touched Ghost, she didn't completely heal her because that was the whole thing of them being on the rooftop in the after credits scene.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what exactly was going on there. They didn't do a great job of explaining that.
Now, is she a character in the comics?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, we'll see where it goes. Well, she got evaporated at the end, so who knows what's going to happen there.
Well, now I know she was the original Wasp in the comics.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, the effects were great, of course. The action was awesome. I thought the film was very well paced. And I've mentioned a couple of times now, but I also think you have to consider pacing as far as a franchise. And this was the perfect movie. This was exactly what I was looking for, and I wasn't surprised that they followed up Infinity War with something like this. And yeah, I love the movie, man. I would definitely go see another Ant-Man and Wasp movie. I'd go see a Wasp movie, if they just did one with her.
Yeah, Janet's first appearance was 1963.
Okay, wasn't there some controversy? Didn't Hank Pym in the comics beat her? Or he smacked her around or something?
Hank Pym in the comics wasn't a good guy, apparently.
Yeah.
That was one of the books I never read as a kid, and a lot of that might have even happened before I was born if these characters were introduced in the early 60s. So I know that there's a few of these Marvel podcasts I listen to while I'm working, and some of them get a little too deep in the weeds in some of that stuff for me to handle. I know there was a big controversy about the way that they handled Ghost.
Yeah, is that I think you were the one that retweeted that. People were upset because they claimed the film misunderstood disabilities.
Yeah.
Is that where we're at, seriously?
Yeah.
That's where we're at. I mean, I didn't read the whole article, but I just browsed through it, and the gist that I got, and I could be wrong, like I said, I didn't read it.
I didn't read it either. I got about a paragraph in, and I was like,
you realized it was stupid.
This is a comic book movie.
Yeah, and the gist that I got, they were mad, or the author was mad that the film cured her instead of finding a way for her to cope with her disability. Now, I never really interpreted that she was disabled. I think you're kind of stretching that. I think she was... I mean, I don't know. It didn't... I never thought of it as a disability, I guess. It was just...
Neither did I.
She'd gotten through... I mean, it's not like... You're really stretching to connect that to real-world disabilities. I didn't... I mean, that's a very... That bridge that you're building is crumbling before my very eyes. It was just a stupid... It was a clickbait article. It's just... That's what the internet has become.
I got a paragraph into it, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, this
isn't for me.
This is
stupid. It's a comic book movie. I'm not going to take it that seriously, that literal. Not everything has to be tied into any kind of real-world situation. Let's just go to the movies and enjoy ourselves for a couple of hours.
Well, and we've seen some of the fallout over on the Star Wars side from over-politicizing these films. And of course, in that situation, I think both sides are completely ridiculous. It's a Star Wars movie. You just got to calm down and dial it back. But Marvel does not seem to make those same mistakes. They know how to play to their audience. They know how to not piss their audience off and keep everybody in the fan base happy. You don't ever see these huge rifts in the Marvel fan base. Everybody generally gets along.
Well, if you looked at the comments from the article, it didn't seem like the author had a whole lot of support.
I would guess that was a universally hated. But I'm sure that they knew that they were going to get shit for that because it was a clickbait article. They know nobody is going to comb through such a trash article all the way to the end. They're going to get their click, and they can go to their boss and say, hey, 17,000 clicks in 1 hour, give me my paycheck.
Exactly.
That's the kind of world we're living in, man. It's kind of sad. Remember when the internet wasn't like that?
Barely.
So yeah, the film has currently, it's 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is well certified fresh. It's got a score of 70 on Metacritic. That puts it squarely in the green. It's doing well, man, and it deserves to. It's a good movie.
Yeah. I mean, there's a guy in one of the comic book forums that I belong to, and he almost hates every Marvel movie, and he actually liked this one. So
Is he a DC guy?
no,
Okay.
not particularly,
Yeah.
but
Well, they're not for everybody.
yeah, it was a fun movie, cool effects. They spent some money on the effects.
Small, considerably better than the first ones, and man, it's come a long way. Remember Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? The small effects in that movie.
Yeah.
Look at where we're at now. We're like blowing up salt shakers. It's awesome.
I mean, they had the one guy. He's been taking a little bit of some of the podcasts I listened to. They didn't particularly care for Randall Park's character, the FBI agent assigned to the case.
Oh, I thought he was fine.
And I thought it was a perfect FBI agent to be assigned to Scott Lang, who is considered a B-level superhero. He's on house arrest, so they don't think much of his skills because everyone else is locked in the prison there under the water, and here he is on house arrest. So it would make sense that the FBI agent put in charge of him is maybe a little bit underqualified and slapsticky. So I had no problem with that.
That was people's main gripe with it, was the comedy.
Yeah, they thought every time that he came on the screen, it was just slapstick.
I'll agree to a certain degree that some of the bits went on a little too long, but it was funny. I still laughed. I mean, it's not a movie to be taken super seriously.
Well, he's got good timing. I watched that show that he's on for the first season or two, and then I stopped watching it. Fresh off the boat, and I thought he was funny in that.
If I'm not mistaken, he is the guy who played Fake Jim on The Office as well.
That I don't remember.
We talked about The Office. I'm almost positive it was him, but I could be wrong. But I thought it was fine. I can't think of a single thing outside of Walton Goggins, and you brought him up already. I did not think there was anything wrong with this movie. I thought it was great. It was a good something I can take my kid to and not have to worry about her crying as Spider-Man dissolves into dust.
Yeah.
And, it's just good. These movies are consistently... Now that we're at this stage, there's been misses in the early stage. Thor Dark World and, the Hulk wasn't great, although I like it more than other people do. But we're at that stage where you consistently know the product is going to be solid when you go to the theater for these Marvel films.
Yeah. That's hard to argue. They're definitely on a pretty big winning streak here lately. But, it only takes one. And then it's a house of cards.
No. That's a bold statement. You think one film could make the whole thing fall apart, huh?
Well,
it took two with Star Wars. It took two with Star Wars. Last Jedi.
I think it only took one. I still think that the Solo backlash had a lot to do with The Last Jedi. I think if The Last Jedi was a better film, I don't think you would have had as much problems with Solo as it ended up being.
So, are you kind of... Now, we discussed all this on the Star Wars podcast, but...
I don't know.
You should definitely go back and check that out if you haven't already. We had our friend Ernest on. He's a great Star Wars guest. Has your opinion... I don't remember if your opinion was that at the time, but is that kind of where you're at right now? You think Last Jedi single-handedly has ruined Star Wars?
No,
okay.
No, I'm not.
But that was the first domino to fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to agree.
Well, you know what? I think it's going to correct itself. I mean, it's Star Wars.
I'm not convinced anymore. I think there's a lot of problems in Star Wars.
So we'll see.
This is.
I have high hopes. You know what? I'll be the first one to go see the new one.
I'll see it opening weekend.
I have high hopes.
I want it to be good.
If it's bad, I'm certainly not going to sit here and defend it. I'm no longer going to die on the Star Wars hill.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'm in a dark place with Star Wars. I've said many times that that's been my favorite movie franchise since I was a little kid. It's just not good right now.
I really like Solo. So
I've kind of soured on Solo a little bit.
I really like it, and I think I'll like it more the second time I see it.
Solo, as of right now, is the worst movie I've seen in 2018. And that's not saying it's bad. I thought it was okay. But everything else has just been that much better. And man, I know a lot of people that did not even go see Solo. So these claims that, it's not, don't believe what you read on the internet. Nah, believe it. Nobody went and saw that movie.
Well, it still did over $200 million.
Yeah, but against what budget? It's
Yeah,
gonna,
but I mean,
it's going to lose a shitload of
that's
money.
That's a lot of people.
It's a Star Wars movie, though, man. Those things should be guaranteed to print money.
Well, it made $211 domestically, so worldwide it's probably double that. So
I don't
they're
think
already.
These movies don't perform well overseas. They're not big in China. The Chinese do not like Star Wars.
It's made $384 worldwide.
That's good.
So that's $120 million over budget.
But then you factor in the marketing cost and the split with the theater. It's going to lose a lot of money. It's okay. I'm not trying to bash the movie. I think it's just okay.
I really liked it.
Yeah, it was okay. It was okay.
We haven't talked about the after credit scene much.
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me. We were about to check out of that.
And
best in the MCU's history?
I think it might be.
I think you're right.
Well, I think it gave the most hints, and I think it had the most impact.
Who would have ever guessed that ant would still be drumming?
Oh, not that one.
I wish I hadn't stuck around for that one. I was pissed.
You know what? I Googled when I'm there and the credits start, I Google after credit scenes, and I saw there was only one.
Yeah.
So when they did the one, I left. So I didn't see that second one.
You played it well. It was stupid. I had to stay to the very end, and everybody in the theater was like, come on. Seriously? It was so dumb.
Yeah.
Sorry I got you off track there. Keep going.
But I was surprised that Hank Pym disintegrated, because I thought he was going to be one of the people that deals with this time issue in Avengers 4. So now I'm not sure about that, because I think the one line when he went into the quantum realm and they said be don't go into the time whatever. I can't even remember what they said.
Quantum.
But it was something about time. Okay. Stay away from the time things, or else you're going to get. So that's going to end up being how he gets out of there, and somehow that's going to tie into them reversing the time and getting everyone back. At least that's what I'm convinced on.
So you think Scott Lang is going to play a major role, maybe kind of working with Doctor Strange somehow?
I don't know if that's necessarily true, and I'm not even sure if it'll be a major role. It could be a 2-minute, 5-minute screen time thing that he does something in the quantum realm to shift the time, and then that might be his only role in the whole movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no idea. But definitely he's going to have something to do with the turning back of the time.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. No, it's a good one. I tend to agree with that. I think he's definitely going to have some kind of role. I kind of hope it's bigger than that, but they're already juggling so many characters in that Infinity War movie, and all of those stories are already in motion. So you're probably right, Andy. There's probably not going to be a huge role for Scott Lang in that, because they're already juggling a lot of balls in the air.
I mean, it could end up being a 3-hour movie.
I'm fine with that. If they can keep the pacing going, I mean, that was 2.5 hours and it felt like a 90-minute film. If they can deliver, I'm fine with that being Lord of the Rings epic, as long as it's entertaining and it's well-paced and there's not a bunch of fat. I want to eat nothing but steak when I go to these movies.
Correct.
So, but it's good. It's a really good post-credit. The first one, you don't need to stay for the second one, but odds are, if you're listening to this, you've probably already seen the movie. If not, we've ruined it for you many, many times. It's a good movie. I would put it. I think I'd put it above the original.
I would have it just slightly below the original.
Yeah, I think it would be connected on my list. It would be side by side, these two. they'd be, 6 and 7 or whatever.
See, no, I was glad that lab was their own lab and not an existing building that they threw that disc on, because I was like going to be like, well, what about the footings and all of that? You can't just like pick it up and carry it away.
You're talking about like the water and electricity and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did kind of wonder how they had power hooked up when they put it out in the forest.
But I'm glad that it was like their own lab that they took. I thought that they shrunk an existing building.
Yeah, that would have made sense.
When you see the trailer, and I'm like, okay, there's footings, there's all sorts of infrastructure. So I'm glad that was. See, those are the little things that upset me.
Yeah, their little arsenal of toys, with the lab and the little Hot Wheel cars, that was a nice touch. They found a way to show us something. We'd seen stuff shrink in the previous movie. We saw him get big in Avengers, or Captain America Civil War, rather. They found a way to give us something new with that. I thought that was a really nice touch.
And I know a lot of people had problems with how can, what's his name, shrink. And I think it's the vessel. He was in the car.
Yeah, it's the car that does it.
Yeah, it's the vessel that shrinks, and everyone inside of it is able to shrink.
Yeah.
So I think that explained that one, because everyone was like, how can Michael Pena all of a sudden be shrinking too?
Well, none of the characters in the car had suits on. So
exactly.
That's the only way it goes. It's the car is the suit, effectively.
Well, some people were like, well, maybe it's already in the DNA of the other people, And I was like, okay, you're thinking way too much.
Yeah, I don't think this is that deep of a movie.
Yeah.
Just
then
kick
a lot
back
of other people were wondering how, when all the things with Thanos was going on, how they could be on the rooftop just doing a lazy experiment to heal someone that they just met, that being Ghost.
That's actually a valid point.
But I've got a theory for that too.
Okay.
They're on the lam.
Well, no, are the Pims?
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. But Scott Lang, he's good to walk around. He got his bracelet off.
But I mean, the Pims are still wanted.
Okay.
And I think in this day and age, if you are going to be on the lam, you're not going to have ties to any kind of social media, because all of that can be traced.
Yeah, but it'd be on the TV, though.
So they wouldn't have. Well, maybe they're not anywhere near a TV. If they're on the lam and they don't have cell phones or anything like that, it's possible. I'm saying, highly unlikely, but this is my way to get around that particular problem everyone has, is maybe they just didn't see it.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not talking, as far as plot holes go, I will acknowledge that second one is a plot hole, but it's like the size of a grape. You can just walk right over it. Don't overthink. It's a movie called Ant-Man and the Wasp. Don't break your brain trying to break this thing down.
As soon as these movies end, every kid that's in his parents' basement is trying to find a plot hole.
Yeah, that's the world we live in. Blame social media.
It just gets tiring. So that is my little explanation on maybe how that possibly happened.
Yeah, I guess it was such a minor thing to me, it didn't even register with me what would be happening. Well, how much time?
I didn't even think about it until I heard a podcast about it and then saw several posts, and I was like, okay.
Well, and how much time passes in Infinity War? Wasn't it just like a day or two?
Yeah, but there would be enough where you would know that Tony Stark was missing. Like, if Bill Gates turned up missing,
it'd be all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, does anybody in Infinity War know that Tony Stark is missing outside of Pepper Potts, though?
Yeah, because wasn't it on? There was a news report.
Okay.
Was it there?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, yeah, I think you're right. Well, as far as problems for me, that doesn't wreck the movie at all.
That one.
I didn't even consider it.
I didn't either until the naysayers. But
haters gonna hate, man. There's no way to get around it today. That's why I tend to spend most of my days logged off these days. It's more enjoyable.
But yeah, good movie. I hope they do a third one. If they don't, it was a good two. It was a good 2-episode ride.
Yep. Yep, good stuff, man. All right, do you have anything else you want to say about Ant-Man and the Wasp?
I do not.
Yep. Go see it if you haven't already. Give that get that 60% drop off. Let's get that spiked back up there.
Now, have you been watching any of the newer Marvel TV shows?
I am on episode 6 of Luke Cage right now, and it's fantastic.
Okay, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
This villain is something. I mean, they found something to equal Luke Cage, which should have been impossible. But Bushwhacker is his name. Is that correct?
Bushmaster.
Bushmaster. He's perfect. The guy who plays him is brilliant. It's a great story. The side characters in that show are so amazing. You know, you got Misty with the robotic arm. That's cool. There's so much. It's such a deep show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this season of it.
Have you wrapped it up?
Yeah, I finished
it. Is it going to hold my interest throughout the whole thing?
It should.
Okay. Yeah, I might have to plow through a couple. I'm trying to limit myself to one episode a night to kind of drag it out because I go through them too fast.
I finally watched the Runaways series that they had on Hulu.
Okay.
And I liked that.
Yeah.
And then now I'm watching Cloak and Dagger on Freeform.
Now, I've heard people talk about that. What is the premise behind Cloak and Dagger?
It's more. It starts getting more into the magic stuff.
Okay.
I think Marvel's starting to get into more like the New Mutants. That's going to be more of more magic stuff than just straight up superhero powers.
Well, is Cloak and Dagger, is this an MCU thing or is this something different?
I don't know if it is. I think. I don't think it is.
It must be something different if it's on Hulu.
No, it's on Freeform.
Okay.
Which used to be.
I don't even know what that is.
It used to be ABC Signature, ABC Family, I think.
Okay.
So it's an ABC property.
Runaways is on Hulu. And that's X-Men, right?
Who would own... no, Runaways I don't think's necessarily X-Men.
Okay.
Who would own the... who owns ABC?
Disney.
Okay, so what do they own?
Disney?
Disney's regular Marvel, right?
Yeah, I think they own everything. Disney, Star Wars, Pixar, ABC, ESPN. They have all that stuff.
And that's regular Marvel, right? That's the MCU.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe they are part of the MCU. Okay. I don't know.
Cool.
It's been interesting. It's a little different.
Now, are you still watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too?
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself, I mean, you're consuming a lot of comic book medium right now. I'm talking the shows, not the actual comic books. You ever find yourself kind of getting burned out with it?
Not really. If they're good stories.
Are you still doing Flash and Arrow?
I did Flash. I did Supergirl. I stopped. I did not watch the last 3 or 4 episodes of Arrow. Okay. I didn't like the arc.
Is that show pretty much toast at this point, would you say?
You know what? When the new season comes out, I'll probably watch the first episode and see if they're doing something better. That's whatever the story arc was that they had going this season was terrible.
I was disappointed because not the last season where it ended on the island where everybody supposedly got blown up. I was all in. I was back. I'm like, this is season 2 Arrow. This has me hooked again. Then I watched that season premiere this year, and I'm like, this you got to be kidding me. This is awful.
Yeah, his sidekicks are.
There's just too many of them, Andy. I can't.
Yeah, they're most of them are unlikable. They fight about the stupidest things
and the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah,
man, that season 2 of Arrow though is always going to go down as one of the best TV seasons I've ever seen. It was so good.
Yeah, because I got on it late, and I was like, how did I not even know this show was even it existed? And then I binged it and caught up.
Yeah.
Lickety split.
I've been told by multiple people that I trust that Supergirl is the best of the bunch of the CW shows right now.
Yeah, they did a they did a big pause in the middle of this season for some reason, so it ended up finishing like 3 or 4 weeks after all the rest of them. But I like it. It looks like if they're doing another season of it looks like they're going to reboot it a little bit because some of the characters look like they're moving on, which might not be a bad thing to keep it fresh.
Yeah. Well, we've seen from the other two shows that when they go stale. For me, Flash fell apart when they did that musical episode, and it's just this is the end. And I never started that season this year. I think I got soured by Arrow. I'm just done with the Arrowverse. Maybe I'll come back to it someday on Blu-ray, but it's just not going to happen now.
Did you ever finish The Gifted?
I don't think I ever started it.
That one I really liked.
I started Legion, but I only lasted one episode.
Yeah, that one's a little weird.
Yeah, that was out there.
I'm still watching it.
Now, The Gifted, maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. That's X-Men, right?
Yeah, that one's the X-Men.
Yeah.
And that one was really good, and I kept waiting for it to jump the shark, and it never did. It kept my interest the whole season through, and I saw it got renewed. So I got high hopes for that.
How was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this year?
I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean, they do a good enough job of keeping the characters interesting, so...
For me, that one kind of suffered from the same thing as Arrow, where it just got to be so many characters on screen, and I bitch about that with The Office all the time, too. The reason why The Office fell apart at the end certainly had a big part to do with Steve Carell leaving, but it's also because every character suddenly became a main character, and I feel like the exact same thing happened on S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, it lulled a little bit, but then it started getting good again. So they started doing stuff with the Kree, and they went into outer space, and it held my interest enough that I didn't give up on it. I mean, I got frustrated in some episodes, but I stuck with it.
That's how that show has been from the beginning, though. I remember some of those season 1 episodes were just total filler.
Well, I remember I flat out quit watching it and missed like 2 seasons. And then I saw Casey said something about how good it was, and I sent him a tweet, and I was like, did it get back on track? And he's like, yeah, you got to start watching it again. So I caught up on it, and yeah, he was right, and it was really good, and they had a really good season. I really liked the one season where they got the one British girl got stuck on the planet there.
Oh, is that the one where Grant, the one guy,
yeah,
he became the monster?
Yeah.
That was a good one. That's probably my favorite season.
And then they did one with the Ghost Rider. And
didn't like that one.
That was only like half the season.
Yeah, that's why I didn't like it. I mean, they advertised it as Ghost Rider, and that part was really badass. And then the second half, it was like a completely different plot.
Yeah.
And then they brought Ghost Rider back at the end, and I'm like, what am I supposed to be feeling right now? I mean, you guys are all over the place.
Yeah, they kind of do that with it, which is a little frustrating. But like I said, the story's interesting enough that it holds my attention. I'm a simple man.
Yeah. Well, you got anything else you want to say? We ended up. Remember the other day you tweeted me and you're like, "Are we going to be able to fill an hour's worth?" We went over that. See, I told you, man. That's how it always turns out.
Yeah.
What exactly is up next? Is this it for superhero movies this year?
I think isn't there DC as an Aquaman in December?
I've heard that. I saw a lot of people talking about it today. I don't know what the deal is with it. December 21st. I'm not going to see Aquaman.
I will go see it.
I'm not going to see it. I didn't go see Justice League either. I still got the DVD sitting there. It's got the shrink wrap on it.
You know what? I'm going to predict you're going to be pleasantly surprised with Justice League.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it was as... man, it's tough when you say that. It wasn't as bad. I mean...
I've heard it's horrible.
When the bar is so low for DC films... and one comes up higher than, like, it's hard.
Well, here's the problem, and this is kind of building on what you're trying to say, I think, is that it would have to be so much better than BVS for me to be into it, because, man, I hated that movie so much. Every time I think about how dark and blank and bland that world was and how constipated Superman looked the entire time, I can't. If it even resembles more of that shit, I can't take it.
It's much better than that. The weird thing is there's a Wonder Woman scene in the beginning of it that just seems like it was thrown in there.
Well, I assume that was tacked on after they saw the success of Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So let's just throw this thing on there, because people like that and they hate the rest of this shit.
And then after that, it started to gain some traction for me, and then the story held my interest throughout the rest of the movie. So it was a little clunky at the beginning, but at the end of it, I was like, wow. And like I saw it the Thursday night. And
I thought you were going to say I saw it for the third time.
No, I saw it the opening Thursday. And when it was over, like everyone in the theater started clapping, and I was like, wow, that was unexpected. I go, okay, it was a decent movie, but I think this round of clapping might be a little too much.
Well, wouldn't you say, though, that like DC...
Everyone was a DC fan, and they were like, okay, this one wasn't a shit show. Yeah, I'm going to clap.
They've taken so many L's the last couple of years, like just being mediocre. And I'm not saying I think the movie is mediocre. It looks really bad to me. But mediocre is a win. That's like winning a gold medal at the Olympics for them. Hey, we got this. We're back. DC is back. Affleck is a great Batman. Cavill is great. His mustache doesn't look weird at all. It's just that they were so fired up for that shit. I assume you didn't clap.
I did not.
Okay, thank you.
But I did think it was I was glad I went and saw it. I was like, okay. That was okay. That was good.
Well, on that recommendation, I will take the plastic off the movie one of these days. Katie bought it for me. It's the first movie she's bought since we got married, and she buys Justice League on DVD. She didn't even get the Blu-ray; she got DVD. And I'm like, what? You're killing me here. What are you doing?
Take the plastic off, let it sit there for 2 more months, and then finally pop it in one.
Isn't it like 3 hours long, though? It's probably like the director's
cut. I don't know if it's...
I can't sit that long through that stuff.
I don't know if it was tremendously long. I don't remember it being tediously long.
Well, the previous film was. Batman v Superman was... Good God. Like I was in the theater for a month.
That was a bad film.
45-minute funeral scene in a cornfield. Yeah, let's go ahead and write that in there.
That was a bad film.
It's terrible. One of the worst movies I've ever paid to see. All right, man. You got anything else you want to add?
Nah.
All right. I can't tell you when we're going to be back, because is anything else really going on the rest of the year?
Oh, who knows?
Yeah, I think it's looking pretty bleak right now. We had a run, unless you want to go see Jurassic Park or Jurassic World, but you got some catching up to do. Jurassic Park's on Netflix. Go check it out. You don't even have to pay to see it.
Oh, is that the one before this
one? The first one, the original. You haven't seen that, have you?
Oh, I saw the original in the theater.
Who was it that was telling me they haven't seen the original? I thought that was you. Apparently, I'm wrong.
But how many? I only saw the original. I didn't see any of the others after that. What's this one? Like 5?
It's the same. This is the 5th one. It's the same stuff over and over again. Dinosaurs get bred. Dinosaurs get loose. Dinosaurs eat bad guys.
Like somebody explained this new one to me, and it said that it made absolutely no sense, but it was tremendously entertaining.
This one was not good. This one, when I walked out of the theater, I texted Stevie, and I'm like, oh, I thought this was better than the first Jurassic World. Yeah, I was wrong about that. This one is not very good. Man,
you really let your emotions get
I don't
the
know.
best.
Yeah, I have. I don't know what's going on with me, if it's an age thing, a midlife crisis, or what, but my emotions are all over the place. I hated Hereditary when I left the theater. I love it now. I love Jurassic World when I left the theater. I hate it now. Well, hate is too strong of a word. I'm just It's like a child. You're disappointed in them. And I'm disappointed in you, Jurassic World, because you made no sense. Your characters were boring, and they had no development. And it was all over the place. It was like 2 movies combined into one. And again, it's too goddamn long.
Well, I think that's just the the way I mean,
it's gotten out of hand. I'm tired of the 2.5 hour movie.
It's almost like these theater or these studios. They feel like if they don't turn out a 2-hour movie, that people are going to get upset that they're not feeling like they're getting their money's worth because they're paying $14 to go see a movie.
I think that's exactly what it is, Andy. I think that they're worried that people are going to riot if they go in for a 90-minute movie. Remember when we were kids? I mean, that's how long a movie was. It was an hour and a half. You went to E.T., it was an hour and a half. Now somebody's going to listen to this and they're going to say, hey, asshole, E.T. was an hour and 45 minutes long. I'm trying to make a point here. But, that era, Goonies, hour and a half. That's what I'm looking for when I go there. If your story can be told in 90 minutes, tell it in 90 minutes. Don't add all this shit in there that I gotta wade through. My bucket of popcorn doesn't last that long.
Like every movie that I go to, I can find at least 20 minutes of just nonsense that can be chopped out.
What would have chopped out of Ant-Man?
The Walton Goggins stuff.
There you go. Chop that out totally. Rewrite it a little bit, have it make sense. You don't even need that character in there.
I mean, you need them to maybe when she goes in to buy the tech, he gives it to her. Okay.
But then why do you need him at all?
And then
you certainly don't need to cast Walton Goggins for that role.
No, but then you get her out of Dodge, and then that's the end that you see of him and all his henchmen.
I think in that circumstance, you just have her have the tech right off the bat because you don't even need to have that.
Yeah, exactly.
Out. She's just got the tech,
If you want to show that there's certain stuff that they need to get from the black market, then have it where she goes and gets it. And then that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Or maybe he flirts with her a little bit, and then she kicks his ass, and then she heads out of Dodge.
Ghost appears, messes things up. Yeah, it just wasn't good. And then right there, you cut him out, or you rewrite it like you just said, Andy, and you chop out 20 minutes, if not more. You got a nice, tight, hour, 45-minute movie, and everybody's happier.
That's why I liked Infinity War so much, because I was like, okay, what would I have taken out of that?
I can't think of anything.
And I mean, you could probably find small bits and pieces, but they wouldn't amount to anything if you added them all up.
Yeah, you need everything that's in that movie. Yeah, you could trim here and there, like you just said, and you might chop 5 minutes out, but what's the point then?
Yeah,
that's such a good movie. I can't wait to see it again on home release. Yeah, all right, man, that's all I got tonight. You got anything else you want to add?
No, that'll do it.
I'm not even going to give out my contact info anymore because I'm never on social media at this point. But listen to the podcast. Check out the webpage, gameblock.com. Hasn't been updated in about 6 months, but people keep going. I get the reports, so.
Nice.
All right, man. We'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye.